Good morning. Okay, so today we're going to talk about like what seems like a simple question, but when you really start to dig into it, it's complex, and it doesn't have an easy answer because there's so many components that play into it. So today's question is, would you rather be gossiped about or never talked about at all? Now take a minute to sit with that because it's not as easy as it seems, right? I mean, I don't want to be gossiped about, and do I want to be never talked about? No. Um, but there are a lot of us that are taught to stay small, to stay agreeable, to stay invisible. And this question can really hit a nerve because deep down inside, what I'm really asking is, am I willing to be fully seen? Even if it means that I might be misunderstood or judged or even attacked. And when I was in my senior year in high school, I had a group of friends that, I was friends with since the fifth grade. And literally one day they woke up and they said, you get everything. Like when we go out, the guys talk to you. I was valedictorian in my class. I was the first chair trombone in the band. Um, and they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. And that was really hard for me because part of the reason I worked so hard is because I wanted to be seen by my mother. I thought, maybe if I just do something that, is big enough, good enough, maybe she'll see me. And it really had nothing to do with me. Um, of why she didn't see me, but then I got into this dynamic where I was asking myself, am I supposed to be big or small? And then I spent a lot of my life trying to adjust to what people wanted me to be, which you're never ever going to make everyone happy. Somebody is always going to want something different. And what I've really learned is that if I want to be happy, I just need to be me. Because, like I said, there's always going to be someone who isn't happy. And it rarely has anything to do with you. It's like my friends, it had nothing to do with me. My best friend before that, graduation day, she apologized, told me she was just jealous, and that's what it boils down to. A lot of times when people say things, it's because of their own insecurities, because you're out there living it, you're doing it, and they want to be living it and doing it, and they want to keep other people small so that they can feel better about themselves. And it's hard. This is work. Like there's still days where people will say something and I let it hurt my feelings. I love the Eleanor Roosevelt quote, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. And that is so true. So today I'm going to talk about some powerful practices that can move you from this this life where you're just hiding and trying to stay small and trying to stay agreeable and try to be what everybody wants you to be, to really this bright and shining star where you're like fully magnetic, where you're not just surviving, you're like fully expressed and you're in your truth and you're in your creativity and you're really just in your power. So my first tip is really just unhook from that fear of judgment. Reality is people are going to judge. That's reality. So let's just say that, and then we can move on. Because, like I said, this fear of being gossiped about, people are going to gossip, and it's rarely about you. It's just, and what this is really about is that part of us that hasn't fully accepted who we are, and that part of us that hasn't fully accepted our own power. When we fully accept ourselves, we don't care what other people think about us. That's really none of our business. So one of the practices I'm going to offer you, and try it, it may sound a little corny at first. I remember the first time I read about this, I was like, okay, this sounds corny. I started doing it with clients and, there was a little bit of hesitation, but I have seen the transformation that it made for me and that it made for other people. So give it a try, maybe give it a week or two, because the first time it's going to feel awkward and it's going to start to feel less awkward the more you do it. But it's called mirror work. And it's very simple. You literally just look at yourself in the mirror and you say out loud, this is important, not in your head, out loud, I give myself permission to be seen. I release the need for others to approve of me. Now I'm going to say that one more time. I give myself permission to be seen. I release the need for others to approve. And it sounds simple, but we don't give ourselves permission to be seen. We're afraid to be seen a lot of the times. And we're seeking others' approval when the only approval we need is from ourselves. And start small, like unhooking yourself from this judgment can just be something small. Post something vulnerable. Wear that bold lipstick that you want to wear, that Hawaiian shirt that you want to rock when you go out, your socks with your plastic sandals, whatever it is that you want to, whatever you want to do it. You know, it's so funny. Like I see a lot of men that they love what they call the girly drinks, but they're afraid to drink them because they're afraid of what the guys are going to say. So I say, drink your girly drink, and claim it as your man drink. Um, and the more that you accept you and the more that you accept the things that you love that really light you up, the less it matters what other people think. The less it matters if people do misunderstand you, because you won't need anyone else's approval except for your own. As you can imagine, I'm a sex therapist. And whenever I say that, it makes people a little uncomfortable, because we're not used to talking about sex, especially openly. But sex is a part of us. Our sexual drive is a part of us. Our sexuality is really our life force energy. When I talk about sex, I'm not talking about necessarily engagement with another person or even self-pleasure. I'm talking about this life force energy, this what turns you on in life, you know? But it makes people uncomfortable. And I do get a lot of judgment. It'll stir up a lot of judgment. People often think I'm the devil when I talk about what I do. But in my heart, I know that what I offer is sacred. And I know that it's necessary to help people process these complex, deeply entrenched traumas, and to live their fully expressed, authentic lives. And so, I have moved out of the shame that I used to carry by even telling people I was a sex therapist, and now have fully embraced who I am, and I love who I am, and I love what I do. And I'm still going to get judgment, and I'm still going to get people who misunderstand me. And I have to let go of that if I'm going to be authentic in the world, if I'm going to be effective with my clients. So number two is to express without performing. A lot of times we think expression means this loud, perfect performance. But what it really means is just being honest, being raw, being vulnerable, being alive just in who you are, and just unapologetic. It doesn't mean being a jerk. It just means just being who you are and not thinking that you need to apologize for it. I had an event recently, and I told the women, my invitation for today is to not apologize. Because how often do we like just put something down? Oh, sorry, sorry, sorry. We're constantly apologizing for who we are and how we move in the world. And so, this is one thing I would invite you to do. Like, yes, if we do something that needs an apology, own it, take responsibility, but don't apologize for being you. That's my invitation. And ask yourself, like, where are you still censoring yourself, to be liked or to be appropriate, to get people's approval? And what would you create, or what would you say if you knew that no one would reject you? And what I'm really asking you is, what would you create or say if you knew that that part of yourself wouldn't reject it? Now, I want to say that again. What would you create? What would you say? How would you show up in the world if you knew that that inner critic wouldn't reject you? So some practices that you can do along with this, some daily free writing. Just literally give yourself 5, 10 minutes, start a clock, and just write whatever comes to mind. Don't judge it, don't censor it, just write whatever comes to mind. A lot of times, a lot of genius and a lot of insight will come through that. You can do voice notes. You can do some body movement. Just turn on some music and let your body move however it wants to move. I love ecstatic dancing. Love it. Essentially, what you do is you just turn on some music and let your body move. But for the longest time, I could only do it with my eyes closed, because when my eyes were open, I was thinking that the world was judging me. And when, in honesty, the world probably didn't care less how I was dancing. And so that was my goal at one point. I want to be able to dance with my eyes open. I want to be able to love me and love how I move without projecting onto the world that they're judging me. And even if they are judging me, who cares? Because I'm having fun. And the last tip I'm going to give you is to surround yourself with your soul aligned community. You know, if you're afraid of being seen, it might be because you're being seen through the wrong lens. You know, the people who couldn't ever see you, who couldn't ever meet you. And so, you know, you need community that celebrates you, that celebrates your power, that celebrates your authentic expression. You know, not people who tolerate you, who aren't you cute, you know, like that's not empowering who you are. And honestly, it's not nourishing for them either. It's not having them show up in a positive way either. So a practice to go with this, you know, seek out those circles, those creative spaces, those courses where expression is honored. Like the more we practice expression, the better we're going to get at it. And ask yourself, who makes me feel more like me when I'm around them? You know, spend more time with them. The people who don't make you feel like you, the people who feel like you're constantly adjusting, spend less time with them. Why waste your time trying to adjust? You know, I had a partner once that he was always trying to adjust me, and part of me was going, why doesn't he love me just as I am? And finally, what I told him is, you know, I love you, and what I've realized is that you're looking for a different woman, you know, and that was when I released him, you know, to go find her, because I wanted to just be me and I wanted him to be happy with the person he was looking for. And that didn't mean anything about either of us. It just meant that we weren't compatible. But so often we make that about us. I don't like chocolate ice cream. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with chocolate ice cream. It just means it's not my flavor. And you know, we're not meant to bloom alone. You know, like your expression, who you are, thrives when you're in the right soil. You know, when you're being nourished, that's when you can really blossom. So I'm going to go back to this original question. Would you rather be gossiped about or never talked about at all? Because if you're in the world, you're fully expressed, you're out there, someone's going to talk. You know, and if you're not out there, they're going to talk. So let them talk, you know, just be you. So I personally, I would rather be whispered about for living my truth, for living my authentic expression, than forgotten because I betrayed who I was. And that's what I want for you. I want you to really reclaim your voice, your body, your power. You know, so check out the link down below. It's a beautiful place to begin. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. You know, we'll be talking about more of this, you know, join the conversation. You know, like even a what is my small step that I can do today that steps out of the shadows and gives people a glimpse of who I really am. Put that down below. Because I just want to say, like, all of you, including me, we are all an art piece. You know, we're beautiful, we're unique. There's no other person like us. You know, so be unapologetic, and you know, and go out there and live and love and express authentically. And until next time, I hope you enjoy it.